Hello and welcome to the Crimson Stitchery, a video channel about making all things that are beautiful and useful. My name is Anushka and you can find me elsewhere online as a Sour Telling. That's my username on Instagram and on Ravelry too. And we do also have a Ravelry group for the Crimson Stitchery, so do join in there. There are loads of really lovely chatter threads that have recently opened up all about knitting, mending, giving out different tips and offering advice. And it's also where we host some knit-alongs or make-alongs. Currently we've got going the vintage Shetland spring cowl, which is a little bit on hiatus as participants tackle some tricky and long lasting difficult projects. But also we've got the Crimson whip along, which is an initiative encouraging everybody to work through their works in progress so that we can get a fresh start for 2020. So I'm just going to deal with the elephant in the room, which is these flowers that are everywhere. I went to a really good friend of mine's wedding yesterday. I was a bridesmaid, and at the end of the night they were going on their honeymoon straight away the next day, and well, today actually. And so I asked if I could take some of the flower arrangements home, and then I've got my bridesmaid's bouquet, and then I think at the end of the night when everyone was leaving, yeah, just decided to pick it up as you do. But this, so I thought I'd pop this in the video and make sure that I record a video today so that I can have this absolutely incredible prop to share with you guys, because I know that many viewers enjoy and share my passion for flowers and gardening. So here we go. It's such a stunning bouquet. I'm really glad that it's not going to waste, because I know that at some weddings it's sort of a given that certain people take flower arrangements, but the bride and groom hadn't actually arranged anything and they were actually just being taken away to be recycled, whatever that means. So we've got like gorgeous anemones, geums, delphiniums here. This is a type of allium, I think, and loads of beautiful foliage, different types of eucalyptus, ferns. What else have we got? Ivy. There's a chrysanthemum here. Yeah, just all sorts of absolutely stunning flowers, and I'm looking forward to having it in my flat for a few days to come. It is absolutely, you know, massive. It's really huge. It was a very gorgeous and extravagant floral display at the wedding. So yeah, just really happy to have it here. And I love this feeling of sort of being inside a bower, a floral bower. And then I've just got, you know, my normal houseplants going on as well, and my little bouquet here too. So yeah, that's that. It's been a few weeks that since I have released an episode because I've been really busy. Some of you may be aware, because I put a few posts up on Instagram, which I don't use very regularly, to be honest with you, about the fact that I took a trip. I was in Southeast Asia for a few weeks. It wasn't anything that I wanted to announce on the internet in advance for obvious security reasons. So that went on, and before I went I actually pre-recorded a lot of videos for you guys to enjoy, and they've been going up over the last few weeks, but I just took a little break, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the video in conversational threads. But let's get started with knitting. So I have a finished object to share with you guys, which is my Amanda sweater. And the Amanda sweater was a kit that was very kindly sent to me by Wool in the Gang for review, and they have wonderfully and generously donated an additional 2 kits from their Cozy Collection Autumn 2019 as prizes for the Crimson whip along. So if you haven't already watched the last episode, I've put a link on screen now, and there's one down below. Do click over there and watch that, because I review the kit in much more detail. But also I'm aware of the fact that there was a bit of a blip on YouTube and a lot of people didn't see the video. It was omitted from the notifications, and I've contacted Google's customer service about rectifying that, and no one has got back to me. Just kind of goes to show when you put your, you know, faith in these like literally faceless corporations, it's very limited. They basically don't have any customer service. There was just some kind of technical glitch or fault, and I've been unable to resolve it. So the video's there, the last episode of the Crimson Stitchery, but I am aware that quite a few people probably haven't seen it because the view count is very low compared to others of my videos. So that's just to say, if you haven't seen it yet, do click over there and watch, and then, you know, revisit me in this episode afterwards, because things should make more sense. But yeah, continuing with my finished object. So Wool and the gang make a lot of kits that are aimed at beginners. I would say beginners and improvers and people that are quite new to the craft, and I don't fit into that category. But I've been really intrigued and interested to try out their products for a very long time. They have very lovely and appealing campaigns, and I enjoy the kind of fairly vibrant imagery that they pop up and like the language that they use. And also, despite being a very experienced knitter, I've never made anything in super bulky yarn with 15mm needles, so it did actually present me an opportunity to try something new, which is great, because that's what we want really, isn't it? Like, you do your craft because you enjoy it, but also you need to keep trying out new things to keep it fresh, otherwise, you know, you just essentially become a machine, you know, just a producer. So yeah, I got this kit in mineral pink, which I wasn't sure how it would work with my skin tone, because the model in the photo had a very kind of bluish pinkish undertones to her skin, and I am much more olive skinned, and it's sort of this greyish pink, like a dirty kind of pink, but a lovely yarn which has got a lot of depth. It's a single ply, kind of almost like a very thick roving, but there's loads of different colours inside, like you know, lavender, purple, peach, yellow, so it's got quite a lot of depth to it. And also I think the moss stitch or seed stitch pattern that the jumper is knit in also adds some more depth and texture because of the shadows between the bumps of the jumper. So yeah, I wasn't quite sure how it was going to look on my skin, but I think in the end, especially having been in Southeast Asia recently, I've caught the sun a little bit, and I've got that sort of sun-kissed glow, although I must say it is fading fast. You know, I only had to be back in London for a few days before I felt really pale again. But yeah, anyway, so actually I think it probably would work for different complexions, especially depending on the colours that you styled it with. So here I've got my trusty kind of warm camel culottes that I wear a lot in the winter, that just on the high street. But then it looks really lovely with this turquoise costume jewellery necklace that I've got on. It just kind of gives it a bit of pop, and that's really me, because I am not a person that's into kind of classic neutrals, by which I mean things that sort of resemble a range of skin tones like beiges, creams, browns, they often feel a bit like non-colours, although I do use them, you know, I do like to use them as contrast colours, and yeah, basically I never feel quite myself unless I have something really bright going on, hence my love of my friend's choice of flowers. I think it was such an amazing choice, especially for a November wedding. Stunning purple anemones and geums here. But anyway, that's just me rambling on and on about colour theory and my approach to colour theory. But yeah, the jumper, let me see, what changes did I make? The biggest change I made was that I cropped the jumper. I knew early on that I wanted it to be much shorter than on the model, where it was, you know, went down quite a few more inches. Let's see, if I stand up, yeah, it stops around the waistband of a pair of high-waisted trousers. Whereas on the model it was much longer, and I just knew that that wasn't going to work with my body type. I'm not that tall, taller than my Asian relatives. I always feel a bit like a giant when I hang out with them, which I have heard other people empathise with. But by European standards, I'm slightly below average height. So that's in the UK at least. In Sweden, I was like a midget when I lived there. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I cropped it because that massive oversized look, unless it is actually like a men's jumper that I'm wearing, I feel like on women's garments, it just dwarfs me, like it swamps me, and it's too much, especially in super bulky yarn. So I made it a lot shorter, and then with the sleeves I had to add on a good inch onto the cuff to make them actually fit the length of my arm. And it's sort of, it does ride up a little bit, but it is actually down to my wristband. So that's much better, because this is a super warm jumper and you don't want cold wrists and a kind of sweltering torso. That's my feeling. I followed the instructions that were in the pattern pretty much, which involved knitting the body in the front, seaming them together at the shoulders, then picking up stitches for the sleeve. And this actually, in super bulky yarn, this process left me a little bit incapacitated when it came to knitting this jumper, because I just had this huge thing on my lap. It was really heavy, it was not portable, and I couldn't move. But I know that the advantages of that are, you know, obviously you don't have to then sew the sleeves into the arm, but also if you think about the beginner skill sets, you're learning how to pick up stitches too, which is obviously a good thing to learn, you know, an extra little skill to practice on a sweater. And sweaters obviously offer a range of different skills and techniques that you have to try out as a knitter. So yeah, but actually I had a cold for a few days and I couldn't actually physically get up off the sofa. It was very annoying. It was just, I had absolutely no energy and was really drained by this cold, and so actually that was quite all right to sit on the sofa and finish off the sleeves of this jumper in that context. But yeah, I think if that hadn't been the case, I suppose it would be okay for winters in front of the TV, watching things and knitting. But it's not my preferred way of working. I actually prefer to knit things in pieces, and I don't have a problem with sewing them up, because for me it's important that the work is portable and I'm not just kind of stuck in one place, because I do like to get up and move around. So yeah, really happy with it. Oh, let me think. Oh yes, the other change I want to mention is that I did do a stretchy bind off for the neck. I did a stretchy bind off like the type you might do on a toe up sock for the cuff, but actually, you know, not being that familiar in this very heavy yarn, it's meant that although obviously I didn't want a sweater collar that would cut me off at the neck or would be really difficult to pull on over my head. But because it's so flexible and the yarn is so heavy, actually it's stretched out of shape quite a lot. So I'm probably eventually going to unravel the bind off at the neck and redo it. Probably still doing the stretchy bind off, but instead of using the 15mm needles that came with the kit of this jumper, I will probably use the 10mm needles, or maybe even smaller ones, just to have that flexibility but just kind of suck it in quite a lot more. But yeah, I'm really happy with this kit. As I said, I reviewed the actual kit itself in much more detail in the last issue, and one of the things I'll repeat that I really enjoyed about Wool and the Gang was the fact that all of their packaging was in cardboard and paper. Aside from a small little plastic window on the packaging of the knitting needles that they sent me, and so I just pulled off the plastic, and unfortunately that thin plastic is not recycled in my local area, so I put that in the bin, but everything else was cardboard and that could just go in recycling, or you know, even if you had the means, you could probably compost that kind of brown craft paper stuff at home, you know, if you've got the correct setup with the right tools and equipment and enough heat to break down brown paper, because you know, people's composting setups differ obviously in their homes and gardens. But yeah, so the Amanda sweater is finished, and if you guys get along with your Crimson whip-along projects, which means reducing your list of whips, works in progress, by 50%, I've alluded to it a little bit at the beginning when I said we had the chatter thread going on in Ravelry. We also have a hashtag Crimson Whip-along on Instagram, and you can also use hashtags on Ravelry, and you know, just wherever else you want to use that link and spread the word. There's been such lovely feedback from people about the Whip-along, and people seem to be really enjoying it, finding it very motivational. I look through the thread every couple of days and it seems like some online friendships are being forged and people are really just very kind and generous. So thanks everybody for your enthusiasm and for joining in. And if you like the sound of it or are a little bit curious and would like to have a go, please do feel free to just join in on the thread. The instructions for how to take part in the whip-along are posted on the Ravelry group, to which there are links below this video. As in all of my videos, I have all external links and show notes in the down bar under this video. So click on that little arrow thing to make it pop down. But yeah, the main premise is that you write down all of your current works in progress and you commit to finishing 50%. And if you manage to do that by the deadline, which is the beginning of January, then you are eligible for the prize draw. But also there will be a prize draw for the chatter thread too, so even just have a go and taking part, you will be eligible for a prize. But obviously probably the amount of people that will succeed and finish their 50% is probably going to be a little bit smaller, I think, probably. So you'll have more likelihood of winning a prize, you know, if you get if you get through your list. Obviously it's just a numbers game. So a question that's been addressed is, do new cast-ons count? And yes, they do, because they're works in progress. So it's, you know, it's a community initiative over a period of time where we commit to reducing the amount of works in progress by 50%, and hopefully we succeed. So if you cast something on, that's got to be added to the bottom of your list, and it's got to be crossed off accordingly. You gotta put in some rules at some time, basically. So yeah, that's this jumper. So this was obviously a new cast on, but I cast it off so quickly, honestly. I spent hardly any time on this. I think that on Wool and the Gang's websites, I recall that they had like a time guide as to how many hours it might take you to knit something. And I didn't time myself, but honestly, it was kind of like bish bash bosh, it's done. And my partner did comment that, you know, he kept finding it really funny to see me knitting with these huge 15mm needles and commenting on the slowness with which every stitch was formed. But at the end of the day, the yarn is so thick and the needles are so big that actually your knitting is really quick, even if you're physically being a bit slower, just because of the sheer scale of things. So yeah, I'm super happy with this. I've really enjoyed wearing it. Everybody likes to cuddle me when they feel me in this jumper, which is fun. The yarn does shed a bit because it is a single ply and a fairly loosely spun yarn, a bit like roving, and that's just something that you have to accept, unfortunately, and just lint roller it every now and then. But I think that the shedding has settled down, actually. I think just when I first wore it, with the mistake of wearing it with black leggings, it just sort of picked up, I guess with the static black velvet leggings, it just picked up all of the fluff. But you know, a few lint rollers down and you can just deal with that. It's just part of grooming, I guess. Right, let's take a sip of tea. I've got some dried mint tea, and I collected in the summer loads of sprigs off my lavender mint bush and dried them out, and now in the winter I can still enjoy mint tea for my garden. Okay, I've got a few other projects to show off. The first is my tiny coral socks, and these are the third pair of socks I've made in this colour, and the second kind of identical pair, because a few months ago I knit a pair of coral socks for my auntie who lives in Singapore, who I then found out watches this podcast, so hello. And yeah, she watched this podcast, so she found out about her gift and didn't tell me that she was a viewer, and then like wasn't very surprised when I gave her her birthday present, and then was like, oh yes, I just kept quiet. So very cheeky, auntie. And then so basically I used the leftover yarn to knit a second pair of socks for one of my best friends, and it was meant to be a birthday present for her for February, but she's going through quite a tough time, and I feel like maybe receiving these socks now might be what she needs, and just having an early birthday present, you know, I'll just tell her that you're going to get your birthday present now because you need them now, I think is what I'm going to do, because I think it will really cheer her up, and she has been begging me to make her a pair of knitted socks for years now, and always saying to me, no, I want to buy them off you, I want to pay you for them, and I've always said, no, you can't, because the money, well, you know, you're not going to pay me more than minimum wage for so many hours to knit the socks, like the price would still be so high. So yeah, I was always just like, oh, if you buy the yarn, I'll knit them for you, which she then never did. But so I thought I'd take the opportunity to use some leftovers yarn, which is still really gorgeous hand-dyed yarn, and I use different yarn for the toe and the heel. And amazingly, so I thought I'd show you the two balls. I haven't weighed them. I think that's focused now, but you can kind of get it from like the size of my hand in perspective, but I've still got, you know, like a noticeable amount of yarn left from these two coral peachy yarns, and from which I knit 3 pairs of socks. So I think that that's quite a testament really. They're both hand-dyed BFL or Blue Face Leicester wool yarns that are superwash. I think one of them contains a bit of nylon, one doesn't. So I knit the socks on 2.25mm needles, which is quite tight for me because I normally achieve a gauge of 36 stitches per 10cm or 4 inches when I use 2.5mm needles. So I normally get the sock gauge using 2.5. So these ones I went down a little bit to make it a bit firmer. And I think that that will help the wear and tear. Yeah, so that was something that was on my whip along list. I think it was the first one originally, and I'm doing quite well with my own whips, despite like new cast-ons, which I'll continue telling you about. Yeah, I think with the new cast-ons I tend to have just cast them on and finished them, and they haven't been sort of the languishing piles at all, so that's been really good. And yeah, still got some leftovers, so I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I guess they could be another contrast thing in a contrast portion in the sock. Yeah, we'll see. I do have another pair of socks too. So this is my new cast on that I did when I was travelling, and in my video about why I don't do haul videos, you know, why I don't just talk about purchases but I try to talk about my projects. I'll put a link on screen because it's been a really popular video and I've had some wonderful thoughts and really considered and nuanced discussion from viewers regarding all of the different themes that were raised in that video. So big thank you actually to everybody who's already watched, commented and responded about that video. I was really nervous about releasing it. I was super nervous because I felt like it would be very controversial. I think especially in the context of like online influencer culture, which I guess I'm taking part in just through merit of filming these vlogs, and you know, knowing, you know, when you do product reviews and talking about stuff, you are, you know, in a way recommending them, whether you're being paid to do it or not. And I think that we've got a lot of responsibility there, but I want to do so in a way that doesn't just kind of encourage overconsumption. But anyway, all of that's just to say thank you very much to everybody for your nuanced discussions and your empathy, and thank goodness no one didn't just like call me a self-righteous B word, because that's really, you know, you just think the worst. I think you know, what is it? Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's me. I'm super pragmatic and not always very optimistic, I must say. But anyway, so this is the yarn that featured on that video, and I talked about it there a bit more. And it's a West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas colourway called Fairy Lights. I think it's last year's colour, and I knit these in order to take part in the festive sock along by Stranded Dye Works. So they're done with their really jolly bright red contrast elements, and I used the bright red. I've just got a whole huge amount of bright red 4-ply sock yarn in my stash that's really old because I bought it to make a Christmas jumper with, but it was the wrong type of yarn. I'll get into that another day because I'd love to knit that jumper another day. But anyway, so I made these during my trip, and they've got really long cuffs because I like the idea that they'd be really snuggly over Christmas, especially as I'm not sure where we're going to be for Christmas this year. We might be not in our own home for various personal reasons that I don't want to get into, actually quite sad personal reasons. But all that is to say, you know, when you go visiting people's houses, sometimes you don't know what like the temperature level is going to be. I think that's all I mean. So I was looking forward to having a pair of like really long snuggly cuffs, and also I tend to wear cropped trousers that go above the ankle bone and 3/4 length trousers. That's just a very me kind of look. So it's nice to have that that warmth with that gap between your shoe and your trouser hem. And so I always have that flash of hand knitted sock, and I think my partner's quite similar as well actually. He likes to have a flash of hand knitted sock too. So I did this pair even with the really long cuff, and I still had loads left over. So then I managed to knit a second one, and on this one I made the stripy bit of the leg much shorter to try and save yarn, and then I knit a much longer 2x2 cuff, which can be, you know, folded up or folded down. So really, I think I'm gonna get, let's have a look. Oh, I can't find the work in progress, but I've started the second one of the dupe of the kind of double cuffed sock, and I think I'm going to run out of yarn on the foot, but that's fine because you're never going to see that because it's going to be inside the slipper or shoe. And then I thought, because my partner doesn't want this sock because it's too jazzy for him, it's a bit too bright, so then I thought actually maybe the first pair with the long cuff could be a Christmas present. And then I could just keep the second one with the double cuff for me, because it's going to have that ugly bit of foot that doesn't match, but I don't really mind. And you know, I'm of the bent where I quite like seeing those little patches and repairs and making do. I'm quite happy. I think it adds character. Yeah, so what did I do? Oh yes, I knit these out of the 2.25mm needles as well, and that was literally just because I couldn't find my normal sock needles, so they're a little bit tighter, but that's fine. Yeah, they're gonna be really lovely. So probably a Christmas present, and probably for me, and you'll hear a bit more about this pair as well. And the other thing I thought was actually it would be really nice to have a very jolly Christmas sock that is just like a normal sock, and have that as a stocking. Because I think in the UK stockings, well actually in my family we always have pillowcases on Christmas morning, and you'd have your present from, you know, whoever, inside the pillowcase on Christmas morning. I don't know why, but when we have stockings they tend to be these big oversized giant comedy stockings, but then I thought actually it'd be really nice to have a sock as a Christmas tradition, and I think you're meant to put oranges and walnuts in them or something like that. And I don't know, I guess the kind of big massive Christmas stocking comes from like fitting maybe big toys and stuff like that inside them, but I think as I've got older, and my family we've all got older together obviously, I think we tend to give food away at Christmas, and my mum tries to make us give away homemade food, but I am not a chef, so I tend to buy like treaty expensive chocolates and truffles and things like that. And although I guess it's not good for your teeth, I think we're just all trying to deal with the fact that, you know, we've all just got too much stuff, and there's this massive impulse, you know, you want to give because you love people and it means a lot to you, but actually what do you do when they just don't physically need anything? So for us, yeah, it's been food, it's been treats, it's been like tickets to see things if you can afford it, or everybody kind of chips in. That can be a bit tough because that can be quite expensive, going to see shows. So for me it's kind of baking or buying, you know, treaty chocolates that no one would ever normally get for themselves, or oh, plants as well. Like these days I tend to give people flowers and house plants and cuttings that I take myself. Yes, it's turning into a ramble about Christmas traditions, I suppose. But yes, I've got 3 socks out of 1 ball of the West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and I reckon that I'll probably get most of a 4th too. So that's my knitting, finished objects, half finished object, and I also have started working on another whip. So I grabbed another project from my long-standing old whips pile. To be honest with you, I think it was just a very impulsive cast on that I probably did when I was avoiding something else. And I'd done hardly anything of it, just a little bit of ribbing, just an inch. So what it is going to be is a cowl, a slightly lacy cowl that's suitable for cycling, and it's going to be lacy so that it can have a bit of breathability, because whenever I cycle I always start off really cold and then suddenly I just overheat and I'm all sweaty and it's horrible. Sure many other cyclists will know what I mean. And I'm knitting it in a sport weight sock kind of yarn. What is it? It's a Ravelry yarn, PT5 Sport, and this is the yarn that I used for my red brick socks pattern, for the heavier weight yarn, because it comes in a really amazing range of colours and it's very affordable, but I think that it's only available in Norway, so you need to find, if you're not in Norway, you need to find someone who is there or make a pen friend and do a gift exchange or something like that. But I decided to make it out of this very, it's got a really nice soft handle, but it's very robust and strong. It's not scratchy in any way because it's worsted spun, so it's really smooth and silky. But it's not, you know, if you compare it to like merino, it doesn't have that kind of handle, that kind of teddy bear softness. But I wanted that because it, you know, it's for cycling. It's going to be worn and, you know, be pulled on and off quite a lot, and it's going to be thrown in the washing machine. So it's like a pair of socks basically. It's not something that you want to bother hand washing with when you just need to wash out the sweat basically. So yeah, that's going to be a little cowl. Not much on it yet, but at least I've picked it up again. Oh, and then while rummaging for that just now, I've noticed that here is the rest of my my sock that my fourth sock in this ball of yarn that I've started. So you can see I've turned the heel and I'm just working on excuse me, and I'm just working on the gusset decreases, and there's not very much yarn left at all. So yeah, that's knitting, all currently hidden in my good old knitting basket behind this massive flower display. I know that in my last video I had a lot of energy because I just come back from swimming, I think, and this one I feel a little bit tired because I was dancing at a wedding all night last night. It's all a bit of fun. Anyway, mending. There has been mending. Did a lot of mending when I was away on my trip as well, actually, just because suddenly some of my clothes wore out. Buttons fell off and hems fell down, but that was all my summer wear, and it's all very much packed away now. I only had one dress just to show you. This is a little vintage 70s dress from Israel, given to me by my old piano teacher who's Israeli. She used to wear it when she was a student, and then when she found out that I liked old clothes, this was probably about 10 years ago, she was so happy to give me this dress that she'd held on to and liked very much, and it's got the original label in it from Scala Ladies Fashion. So yeah, I wear it quite a lot. You might recognise it from my video that I made with Sarah Shepherd when I did the studio visit and interview. So yeah, another video for you guys to watch and catch up on if you haven't already. What is there to say? Oh, the hem fell down, so I just sewed it back up by hand, which is a very easy thing to do when you're away. You just need a needle and thread. If you've got one of those like hotel sewing kits. I wasn't staying in many hotels during my trip because yeah, whatever, but actually my grandma's one of those people that always takes the hotel stuff, and she's got like a stash of hotel sewing kits and she just puts them in her bag, and then we've just got some lying around the house, which actually came in super handy to have a needle and thread. Yeah. So moving along into conversational threads, and I'm just going to chat a little bit about some other things that I've been getting up to. It is now November and I still have some figs on my fig tree that are ripening. It's really late this year. Last year they were all ripened by mid-October, but this year it's taken a good few more weeks, which is who understands why, but it's definitely something to do with climate change. It's really late. I've read that fig trees can have up to 3 crops a year, a sort of early spring one, a summer one and a late autumn one. But mine only really seems to do well in late autumn. It did have an early summer crop, and I just left all the figs. Oh no, I didn't. I thinned out the figs because that's what a lot of gardening advice tells you to do when you have fruit crops, fruit trees. If you have loads of fruit that are growing just on one branch, they're all going to be too small because the energy is being spread out. So you're meant to thin them out, all of the pathetic, wrinkly, undersized, puny ones. You just take them off and put them in the compost, and then you just leave one at the end of each branch in order to get really big. So I thinned out my early spring crop, and then suddenly all the fruit just disappeared off the tree. It was really bizarre. I normally blame the squirrels, who do really irritating things like take one bite of fruit and throw it on the floor. It's normally them, but I didn't even see the rejected figs, so they literally just disappeared. It was super weird. So for my late autumn crop, I didn't thin them. It's possibly a bit of a mistake. I maybe could have thinned them gently, but I was quite nervous given how I'd lost a whole crop a few months ago, so I just left them all on there. And you know, they finally ripened, and I've been busy every year now. Well, this is the 2nd year I've had the tree. I make fig chutney with loads of ginger. I like double, treble, quadruple the amounts of spices in recipes. So, you know, they say to put like a thumb-sized piece of ginger, or put like a fist-sized piece of ginger. If they say put in 10 peppercorns, I'll put in a massive tablespoonful of them. Same with chilies, and I really need that. I think being so attuned to heavily spiced food because of my Asian background, because of my partner's West Indian background. Just when it comes to British and European recipes, the spices never cut it, never. Like, and you know, I'm one of those annoying people where if I cook something with chili in, my Caucasian friends will generally be a little bit weepy from the heat, and it will be just right for me. Or conversely, if someone that can't really take heat but likes the idea of it cooks a curry, and to me it's completely bland because I need things really heavily spiced. So, and I do think for chutney you need things to be very heavily spiced because it contains so much sugar and vinegar, which are the preserving agents. So against all of that sweetness and sourness, it's just nice to have that lift and that warmth from, you know, chili, pepper and ginger and all of that. So yeah, I've been very busy making that. It's just loads of stirring and chopping. It's not difficult at all. And then giving it away to my delighted friends. Yeah, decided not to like keep it for Christmas presents and just gave it to people who I knew would really enjoy it, and they were most grateful. So that was really lovely to be able to share that. And then the other thing that I did with my figs, I'm going to show you, is I made 1, 2, 3 figgy puddings. Just suddenly popped into my head about that song, now bring us some figgy pudding, now bring us some figgy pudding. So yeah, I thought I'd have a go. All the recipes I found were with dried figs. I couldn't find anything with fresh figs, but I just decided to do it anyway. And it just took a really long time to cook, I guess because there was so much more moisture in it. It took hours, like much more than what the recipe said it would take. But yeah, I hope they're going to be okay. I can kind of smell them. They smell really nice. I can tell that they're maturing already. I'm a bit nervous to open them up because they were quite damp, I guess, but they contained loads of sugar again, and there were dried fruits and a little bit of alcohol, so hopefully that's enough as a preserving agent. But I don't actually have anywhere to store all of these puddings in my flat. They've just been sitting on the side in the kitchen. So I'm actually going to take them round to my grandma's house because she's got more cupboard space, and encourage her to, you know, pour more brandy in them in order to keep them preserved. So yeah, that's going to be some Christmas gifts too from my fig tree, and like using up loads of leftover packets of sultanas and dried fruit, and like old bottle of sherry I just poured into the mix instead of going out and buying like a bottle of brandy. I just use what I have, throw it all in, which I think is definitely in the spirit of such things, and ended up with, I was very shocked when I saw quite how much mixture it produced. I think I had underestimated the bulk when I was looking through the ingredients list. But anyway, I've got 3, and I've got 3 households to give them away to. The other thing that's great is because when you make this kind of thing at home, again, it's not hard, it's just a lot of chopping, stirring, and it's time consuming. I don't think that it really takes much skill to make Christmas puddings. And then you can make it, you know, according to any allergies, because we have several not allergy sufferers in my family, and you know, there have been Christmases that have ended in the emergency room, put it that way, because Christmas food seems to have lots of hidden, you know, poison in them for these people as far as they're concerned. But yeah, my figgy puddings. And then that's all my kind of craft and making and everything like that out of the way. I have had to take a little bit of break from knitting in the last 2 weeks, hence my unfinished sock, I think, because I've had a lot of trouble with my wrist, which is something that flares up with me quite frequently. Actually, every couple of years or so I have a very bad bout of wrist pain, and it's been the case since I was a teenager, so I have to really watch out. And then at this wedding, I actually performed at the wedding. I played the music for the bride and groom entering and then walking out. I can't remember what it's called, the entrance and a recession or something like that, which was my gift to the couple, and they were really gracious and grateful about it, and really enjoyed the live music. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the wedding didn't realise that there was live music, I guess, because I was sort of hidden away behind this large grand piano, which was beautiful to play on, like such a lovely experience, and I haven't played on such a nice instrument in a really long time, I think. When you play the piano, obviously you don't carry your instrument around with you, so you just have to take what you can get, and I wasn't expecting that much, I guess. Like I said, my attitude is to keep your expectations low. You know, I wasn't expecting like an amazing a beautiful concert touch, I guess, piano, but it was a really nice antique piano. It was very old grand that had been kept in really beautiful condition, and it was just so responsive. You know, anything that I did, it just reacted perfectly. The pedal was a bit creaky, the pedal wasn't as responsive, but the keys, it was just a lovely experience to play. So even though obviously I'd spent months learning these pieces of music and committing them to memory, I was so happy to be able to do that for my friend. I think something that I've touched on quite a lot in my knitting podcast is the question of money and income, and I've talked about that a lot in relation to craft and hobbies, and sort of the difficulty of, you know, how do you measure up like your great pleasure in something which is almost seen as wasting time or just using time. You know, it's sort of, why spend the hours knitting a jumper when you could pay far less for a second-hand one, or just even less actually if you bought a mass-produced one on the high street. That sort of time-money conundrum. And I think when it comes to my friends, the ones that just got married, they had a very extravagant wedding. It was gorgeous, it was amazing that they could do that, and it was, honestly, it was beautiful, it was really beautiful. Nothing that I would ever myself be able to partake in, and you know, it's in their means. And it can be difficult, I think, in friendship groups, talking about money and relationships as well, especially when you're doing different things with your life and you have different levels of income. And also when like sort of your paths are taking you in different ways. And, you know, to put it lightly, I've seen advertised a very top salary for an academic job in the UK, and that was the starting salary of people that I know who work in finance. So it's, when you look at it, you know, side by side, you just can't, it just almost feels like you can't compare the money because it's so meaningless in terms of like even prestige and what jobs involve and responsibility. Yeah, so I think the point I'm trying to make was doing something that was within my means as a gift to my friends that they really appreciated and was so lovely about. Like it was very meaningful to me, even though it did mean that I had to commit an awful lot of time and, you know, dedication in order to preparing such a gift, which was, you know, playing music. But I think the things that people do, that I've heard of people do, you know, in terms of making objects as well, like stitching a banner or stitching a quilt or knitting a friend a shawl for their wedding or a blanket, that I've heard of people doing, you know, that sort of probably a similar amount of hours, depending on how thick your yarn is. Those kind of gifts are just really, really wonderful and takes a lot of commitment. I guess you wouldn't just do that to everyone, because I guess it's just easier just to put some money in an envelope, and quicker certainly. But yeah, I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, but my question to you is, have you ever made someone a wedding gift, and what was it, and how did you choose it, and how did it go down? What else? Oh yes, I wanted to touch on my trip briefly. So I spent a few weeks in Southeast Asia with my grandparents. It was really lovely. It was a really lovely time. It was very, very low key. Nice to get away, nice to have the sunshine. Made me really question why on earth we're all living in the Northern Hemisphere, because my mum's family and also on my partner's side, both of his family, like all of our grandparents immigrated to the UK in the late 50s and 60s from really hot countries. Basically, and I'm just like, why are we all still here? It's so cold and dark and grey, and Yeah, it really made me wonder how we all put up with it all. But yeah, I had my trip, and it was lovely just to have a different pace of life. It was a lot of visiting family members. It was very relaxed. Nothing really big happened, but we did manage to have a holiday as well. We had a little trip where we went to Cambodia to see the temples of Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom in Siem Reap, which is the second biggest city after the capital. And during that whole time, I did a little bit of documentation on Instagram. I just shared a few pictures, and in the Crimson Stitchery newsletter, which I am working on going out after the release of this video, I will put a few pictures in there as well. So yeah, I just had some time to be in a bit of a different headspace, and I did a lot of creative writing, which was lovely and something that I have felt sorely lacking from my life. I used to write poetry and song and perform poetry and song very often. But since I've started my PhD, I've just had no brain space for that type of writing, and it was lovely to just sit back and feel it all coming back to me, and made me feel very encouraged. And while I was doing that, I thought I'd try and think about different ways of sharing my writing and disseminating it. So I had a little bit of success and a little bit of failure. The success was that I had a piece of writing published in Storied Stitches, which is a little craft scene, a sort of, I don't know how you describe it, maybe like a queer, feminist, friendly DIY and craft scene. And I have a short essay, and they published me in their Halloween issue and sent me a couple of extra copies as well, which was lovely of them. And the issue just features some lovely work. So yeah, they sent me a few copies as well to give away, and I'll probably wait till I do some kind of prize draw that involves postage and throw it in. But yeah, it's just got some lovely features of different work and writing inside, lots of new people to find, and it was lovely to contribute something to a zine, which is a kind of DIY magazine publication, self-published endeavour that is small and new and growing, and they were just very lovely people to work with. So that's Storied Stitches. They have an Instagram account, and you can order copies of their zines as well on Etsy. So yeah, that was my success. I guess they're a very small publication, and I had a lot of rejections, which means that, you know, I was sending out a lot of ideas and being thwarted. And I wasn't really upset, because that's just how it goes. But what I thought was a shame was that no one really gave me any feedback as to why they didn't think my writing was suitable. Apart from one publication who basically told me that in not so many words, my work wasn't political enough, but it was quite obvious that it wasn't their type of politics, and I decided I wasn't going to bother to revise my piece because I didn't share their values, so there was just no point. And also that I don't think that I want to associate myself with extreme left hardline socialist politics. It's just really not the way that I approach things. And also I just want to avoid politics in general. I think it can be really divisive. So I've been thinking about how to continue that. The Crimson Stitchery also has a monthly newsletter. This month's is a little bit late because there's been a lot of things going on basically behind the scenes. So this month is a little bit late, and I do explore a lot of writing in the newsletter, and I've had such a lovely response again from readers about that. So please do sign up to the newsletter if you haven't done so already. There is a link again in the down bar in the show notes for this video and all my videos. So yeah, I'm kind of wondering if I should put together a zine myself, and if you guys would be interested in reading more of my writing in a kind of specific written context, and would you buy a physical magazine. I guess it would be something printed probably quite inexpensively, probably more like just a stapled pamphlet rather than anything super fancy, but it's been something that's been kicking around in my mind a lot. I do have a lot of ideas about ways to pursue the Crimson Stitchery, but this is like very much a very small sideline in terms of what I do, albeit a really enjoyable one. I do have some more things planned for the future that I will announce when I'm allowed to, but yeah, I'm currently wondering about writing, creative writing and non-academic writing. Following on from that, I think I'll just talk a little bit about my current campaign. So I announced this in the last video, which if you've watched to the end, you'll have heard that there was these issues with Google, YouTube for publicising that to my viewers, which really was a shame. But despite that, I've had really wonderful success on my Ko-fi campaign, because basically I am saving up through Ko-fi for a new video camera for recording the Crimson Stitchery. And I went into it in detail before, but basically the camera that I use to film for YouTube is borrowed, and it's actually a film camera. It's not a specifically designed video camera, and it takes video, but it's really quite problematic and difficult to use because it's not a purpose designed piece of equipment for this uses. You know, it's designed for capturing still photographs, and it's really a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you, to film videos. Like even just today, I've had to reset the camera probably about 8 times, which wastes a lot of time during the filming. It interrupts the speech, you know, it means that the quality of the video isn't great. Basically the camera shuts off after a certain amount of time, it overheats very quickly. It's just not been designed to film live footage. And also I'd love to do more demonstration videos, and I found that there's a lot of limits with that. And also I'd love to do much more on location shooting, so going out and doing interviews like I did with Sarah Shepherd. And it's super embarrassing and just not really suitable when you have to keep interrupting the interview with equipment failure. So thank you so much for everybody who has donated to the campaign. Like you can see, I just talk about it and I start giggling because I'm so amazed and overjoyed by your generosity. We've actually funded over 60% of the cost of a new camera. And as I explained previously, I haven't specified a specific model, because I've shopped around a little bit and I've got my eye on about 3, and what I'm probably going to do is wait till the January sales or some kind of Christmas sale and just go for whatever seems the most cost effective and suitable. Yeah, so big thank you to everybody who has donated so far. There were really absolutely loads of single donations through Ko-fi, which I really appreciate, and there were a few much larger donations, which is really kind of you. I don't want to name names because Ko-fi allows people to be anonymous publicly, and I think that you guys know who you are, and you know, if you have been enjoying this channel, if you'd like to see a little bit more and it's within your means, I would really appreciate it if you'd consider buying me a coffee, which is basically a metaphor for sending a small PayPal donation through into the Crimson Stitchery's account. In the event that I raise more than the target, which is £400, I will just look at, you know, purchasing a better model of camera basically, or look into other kit and equipment for the channel. At some point I'd love to get some lights. At the moment I'm using all of the lights on in my living room with the curtains closed, so it's all very DIY. But I think basically as the channel grows and people enjoy it, if I can manage to acquire some decent equipment, it will make shooting the videos much easier, quicker and more streamlined, and allow me just to create better content so that everybody can enjoy it. So yeah, one more time, thank you so much to everybody who has donated so far to the Ko-fi campaign, and thank you in advance to anyone else who decides to do so after this video. I really appreciate it. That's pretty much everything for this video. I'm going to go away and edit it now and open up my curtains and allow the daylight to be back in. The last thing is just one more reminder about the Crimson Stitchery newsletter, postcards. Monthly postcards is what it's called, and I'll be sending out my late November postcards shortly, so please do sign up for that if you haven't already. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps boost like the statistics, and it helps get the video out into more people's algorithms whenever you just click that thumbs up and like for every video. And you know, drop me a comment, let me know what you think, let me know what your thoughts are on wedding and occasion gifts as well. I'd be really interested to hear how you guys engage with that kind of process of gift giving too. And yeah, just keep in touch, and I'm not quite sure what type of video I'm going to film next, whether it'll be a how-to kind of knitting masterclass video or if I'll go straight in with another podcast. We'll just have to play it by ear and you know, let yourself be surprised. But anyway, I will be talking to you guys very soon.